Oh yeah, green is much better. There it goes. What would it be, to show people because of artificial intelligence, the idea that this is all done by AI, we deliberately try to introduce some errors and flaws in the presentation. Can you hear me now? You can hear me now? Yeah. Oh, good. They without that. Well, good morning to everyone. Thank you for coming out for our November Tempe History Society Lunch Talk series. I think we've got a great presentation for you today. I was going to welcome you to fall, but I guess I'm going to say late spring. It's supposed to be 86 today, but by the weekend, we'll be back to 60s. It's supposed to be a 20-degree temperature drop come Friday, and I think we all could use that. So this will be, I'll have more information later, but our last lunch talk for 2025 is those of you who know that when we do these series, we take December off, so you've got Thanksgiving and the holidays and all of that, and not have to be interrupted. As usual, I want to thank Friendship Village for their continuing sponsorship of our lunch talks. They have been with us now for a number of years, and in many ways have helped us raise the level of our series. And for that, we are very appreciative. And Mark Young couldn't be here today, but we do have this little, well, let's call it an advertisement. You've probably seen it on Channel 8 and elsewhere for Friendship Village. See, this is live. This is not AI. You can laugh again.
Welcome to Friendship Village. Let me show you around. Wow. It's like a cruise ship on land. Do you like art, music, heated pool, yoga, pickleball? There are events and group outings for just about every interest.
The food.
There's so much to do here. Move it or lose it. Well, this is our stop.
Let's keep going. Yeah.
All right, there it is. And it's, yeah, sure, go ahead. And can you bring that down a little bit? Okay. Poor Brianna. All right, does that sound a little bit better? Everybody can hear, good. I was just going to say, the gal who's in that commercial, I probably shouldn't reveal that, it's not really a resident of Friendship Village, and I just saw her in another commercial the other day, so she gets around. I believe she's a Scottsdale actress. So now you know the trivia bit of this. And hopefully Mark will be with us again when we come back, reconvene in January. I want to introduce to you our speaker today, and that's Dr. Summer Cherland. Chair or share?
Share. I'm a singer. I live in her land.
Cherland. Oh, do you dance? Are you going to sing? She will sing the introduction to her talk this morning, which is about South Phoenix. And there was a time in the valley, and I don't know if that's even before there was much of a population in South Phoenix, everything south of that little enclave called Phoenix was called the South Side. And so South Phoenix probably was part of the South Side, but I'm diverting. Dr. Cherland is a faculty member at South Mountain Community College. She teaches American, African American, and Chicano history. In 2017, she co-founded the South Phoenix Oral History Project. And I think that's important because the history of that area is distinctly different than how Phoenix itself came together. And that project is a student-led initiative to capture and preserve the untold stories of innovation, education, equity in South Phoenix. She's got a long list of credits and things of that sort, but I kind of try to tell people if these people that we invite don't have the right credentials, we won't invite them. And rather than give you that whole long list, you can judge for yourself her remarkable experience and the results of all of her years of research. So please welcome Dr. Summer Cherland. Actually, I hate the word doctor because I've got this pain, right? See right there?
I can't help with it much. I can sing to you.
Oh, do that.
I could sing some of my favorite
Why
Cher
don't we
songs.
do, it's Summer Cherland, FUD, is that right?
No.
PhD.
No, PhD works though, yeah.
Yeah, well, FUD. We try to, make acronyms pronounce like something.
I love it.
So after that, go ahead and try to bring everybody together.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here today. Thanks to Dr. Marin for extending the invitation to the Tempe Historical Society and to the Friendship Village for sponsoring today's talk. I will warn you, I get very passionate about South Phoenix, so I hope you enjoy yourselves a little bit. All right, so the Phoenix white settler myth goes something like this. Once upon a time, there was a Confederate defector, heavy drinker, and morphine addict named Jack Swilling. Swilling hit proverbial gold in the 1860s when he discovered the ancient Hohokam Canal ruins. Upon these fossilized ditches, Swilling built a modern canal system that made Phoenix irrigable, farmable, and livable. Phoenix then rose from the ashes and became a modern utopia, built for whites by whites, and the tradition continued into the 21st century. But this is legend, elements of truth spun together with unhealthy doses of nostalgia. It is not the story of Phoenix's founding. Phoenix was multicultural from the beginning, with Mexican farmers and founders moving into the valley alongside those white settlers. Native American and Mexican architects designed the first buildings and taught whites how to work with adobe. Swilling himself was married to a Sonoran woman, Trinidad Escalante, and the two of them had at least 2 adopted Apache children. And like I tell everyone I talk to, if you really want to know the history of Phoenix, you've got to come south. When Jack and Trinidad arrived in the 1860s, they were not the first people here. On the southern banks of the Salt River was a small community of new American citizens, Mexican expatriates, citizens under the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. They appropriated the Hohokam canals just as Swilling and Y.T. Smith had done, John Y.T. Smith. Some Mexicans lived north of the river in the burgeoning downtown, and others, like Pedro Sotelo, owned land in what would today become South Phoenix and Tempe. Sotelo was from a powerful family, you may know this. His dad was Ignacio Sotelo, commander of the Tubac Presidio in the 1800s. He would have been considered elite. Whites and Mexicans shared in the labor and authority of this new city. So what changed? What happened? Well, 3 events changed everything. The first, the city is founded, and the main streets now became Center Street, running north and south, and Washington Street, running east and west. Half of the 240 residents or so were Mexican. But 11 years later, when Phoenix was incorporated, the first legislation included measures for racial segregation. Second, the railroad arrives. In 1886 and 87, 2 railroad lines were completed from Maricopa Wells. Just as soon as Mexican and Native laborers finished building the tracks, Phoenix officials designated the north side for whites and the south side for people of color. Municipal funding flowed north. 3, the Salt River floods. In 1892 and 93, and then a third in the 1910s. This forced those with means further north to higher elevation, leaving behind the most vulnerable living in the floodplain between the tracks and the river. So when you heard I was going to talk about South Phoenix today, what did you think? Where did you think I was talking about? Did I mean south of the river? south of Washington Street, south of the railroad tracks? What's your assumption? I once interviewed Gary Walters, who told me he was, quote, born and raised South Phoenix. Gary told me all about growing up on Magnolia Street and being raised there in the 1960s and 70s. And at the end of the interview, I asked Gary what I ask every narrator. I said, Gary, where is South Phoenix? Where does it begin and where does it end? Gary told me in no uncertain terms, South Phoenix is from the river to the mountain, from 48th Street to 19th Avenue. There's just one problem. Magnolia Street, where Gary grew up, is 1 block north of the river. So by his own definition, Gary, born and raised South Phoenix, was not from South Phoenix. But of course he is. Who am I to challenge his version of events? This isn't like gotcha journalism. This is local history. So I saw Gary. I see him pretty regularly, and every time I do, I say, you know what, Gary, I talked about you the other day. You show me that there's an opportunity for interpretation when it comes to South Phoenix. There are 3 major physiographic aspects or features that typically separate the haves from the have-nots when it comes to urban planning and racial segregation. Do any of you have guesses what they are? Geographical or physiographic elements that separate people. Water. Mountains are a good guess. Railroad. River, railroad, highway. South Phoenix has all 3. You know about the railroads. They separated whites from people of color, and everything on the south side was disregarded. Funding was withheld, and the city allowed for both industrial and residential development, setting into motion decades of pollution and fracturing our disenfranchised communities from the beginning. Many people living south of the tracks built their own homes from found materials, tents, and the like. Outdoor privies were common. Sidewalks didn't exist. Buses and streetcars didn't come south of Jefferson. From the 1930s to the 1960s, some considered this area, quote, the worst slums west of the Mississippi. Consider water, and I'm not just talking about the Salt River flooding. There's another part of the story that's crucial to understanding how South Phoenix was formed in relation to the river, and it has to do with dying in Territorial Phoenix. Josefina Pogue was likely born in 1886. By 1919, she's living in a home on Lincoln Street, just south of the railroad. That year, Josefina's daughter, Pastasita, discovered Josefina unresponsive, bleeding from an assumed gunshot wound to the chest, self-inflicted. Josefina left behind 2 notes written in Spanish, one to her daughter and one to an unnamed white serviceman that she was in love with. The story was covered widely in the newspapers, rare for a woman of Mexican descent to get that kind of coverage. But the salaciousness of her apparent suicide and this unrequited love for an American soldier made for a scandal. Josefina, the Arizona Republican reported, was buried in the cemetery across the river. Mexican families like Josefina's, north or south of the Salt, had very few options when it came to burying their dead. Cemeteries would not take their deceased loved ones, so they began using a potter's field near 12th Street and Weir, or south of Broadway to the uninitiated. The graveyard has a lot of names. Campo Santo, the Mexican cemetery, the cemetery across the river. Over 400 souls are laid to rest here. None of them are marked. We do not know which one is Josefina. All of them are Mexican or Yaqui, half are children. It seems even if you lived near downtown, you had to go south to die if you were not white. Remember how I told you that cemetery has a lot of names? The most frequently used name is associated with some of the most famous Phoenicians. Who's the biggest name in Phoenix history you can think of? I haven't heard it. Goldwater's a good one. Anybody else? Hurd. Dwight Hurd. The most often used name for the graveyard is the Sotelo Hurd Cemetery. Possibly named for Pedro Sotelo, definitely named for the Hurd family. How did Dwight Hurd make his money? Cattle, all right. He made his money in a combination of marrying well and land south of the river. Marie Bartlett Hurd married Dwight Hurd in Chicago in 1893, and they moved to Phoenix a couple years later for Dwight's health. Together, they founded the Bartlett Hurd Land and Cattle Company. Someone said cattle, and land is included. Now, many of you know them for their museum and their art collections. You might know them for their newspaper, the Arizona Republic, right? Then called the Republican. You might even know a little bit about their omnipresence in what is today South Phoenix. May's dad was CEO, Dwight was the vice president, and May kept the books. She became one of the most powerful citizens, not just women, in Phoenix. That's because the Bartlett Herd Company ultimately owned about 7,000 acres of land, all south of the river. They initially bought it to ranch cattle and grow alfalfa, but something that Dwight had his hand in shaped their future. He was one of a few Western landowners who publicly promoted federal preservation and reclamation. He was friends with Teddy Roosevelt. So Dwight helped pull together the Salt River Valley Water Users Association, later SRP, and he lobbied Washington for an irrigation project that ultimately would control the unpredictable Salt River. He was successful. The very first Bureau of Reclamation project in 1911 was the Roosevelt Dam. That same year, Dwight took Teddy on a drive south over the Center Street Bridge. This at the time was called the longest concrete structure in the world and built in relationship with the Roosevelt Dam. It was financed almost entirely by the herds. But they owned too much land. In order to draw water from a BOR project, they had to own less. So, in a very familiar tale, they began subdividing their lots and selling them off. Two of the streets in the first developments that they sold were Carver and Greenway, named for Rough Riders in honor of President Roosevelt. And these developments were only sold to whites. May outlived Dwight by 22 years exactly. They died on the same day. Did you know that? Just several years later. She died in 1951, he in 1929. In the 22 years that May outlived Dwight, she saw this one-room Roosevelt school, it was called the Herd School at the time, become Roosevelt and then the Roosevelt School District. South Mountain, which she and Dwight helped lobby the city to take over, became the largest municipal park and preserve in the country. The Herd Scott Pueblo behind me is on land that she donated, and it boasted Pueblo Revival architecture. It was decorated by her sister. So in her lifetime, South Phoenix goes from being one big ranch that she seemingly owns to this massive community of dozens little developed communities and neighborhoods, many of which remained agricultural for many decades. One such community was Okemah. Founded in the 1910s, the herds recruited black cotton pickers from Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas to work on their ranch. New black settlers could legally purchase land in one place in the Phoenix area, and that was Okemah. This community was named for a Kickapoo man, and here blacks could own up to 40 acres. They could grow citrus and vegetable, raise livestock, and the like. Nelson Mitchell Sr. moved to Okemah from Texas in 1943 at 55 years old. He had only a fourth grade education, but he drew and executed the plans for his home on his own. And when he was done, it was one of the most modern homes in the entire Phoenix area owned by an African American. It was slump block with a swamp cooler, a screened-in porch, gas heat, and a stovetop, a functioning toilet, a garage, groundwater, and SRP delivered irrigation to the land and pastures. He had a cow for milking, chickens and pigs for slaughtering, and quiet, breezy nights under mesquite, cottonwood, and pecan trees. Mitchell's home was surrounded by homegrown citrus groves, sweet peas, roses, lettuce, squash, corn, greens, and the like. His 3.5-acre homestead was located north of Broadway Road at Route 1, Box 426, Tempe, Arizona, even though blacks were barred from buying homes in Tempe until the 1970s. Mitchell's family attended Willow Grove Church, named for the willow tree, where the congregation used to gather before there was a chapel on Miami Street. Baptisms took place in a canal just off Transmission Road, today's University and 40th Street. Nelson Mitchell III was born in 1953. He and his siblings Cynthia and Linwood attended 40th Street School in Okemah. It was all black because African Americans were segregated in elementary and high schools. Even though they had Tempe addresses, the Tempe School District paid the Roosevelt schools over $200 per child to take black students. 40th Street School, also called Okemah School, had no playground, no cafeteria, outdated books, broken desks, and a stern but devoted principal named Letha Slaughter. Slaughter, like many women in the community, looked after the kids and protected them. She ensured they got the best education in the city. These kids went on to win national awards, attend major universities, earn doctorates and law degrees, and forever shape the area around them. Also in Okemah lived a gal named Gloria. When Gloria was in high school, she tried to sneak into Tempe High many times. Her house, after all, was in Tempe and on the bus route. She just lived on the other side of the street. So on a regular basis, she would board the Tempe school bus and ride to the nearby high school. She was always turned away. Instead, Gloria attended South Mountain High, which opened in 1956. Every day, Gloria walked into school passing under the Confederate flag, which hung just below the Arizona state flag. Does that give you chills? That gives me chills, right? Under the state flag. It's on the same flagpole. South High's mascot was the rebel, a stars and bars wielding Southern soldier. Black girls were not allowed to play tennis, but every year, Gloria enrolled in the PE class that just so happened to teach tennis. And every year, she got a phone call from the front office telling her, sorry, Gloria, your schedule has been changed. You're not allowed to take that PE class. I just love her little acts of resistance. Gloria Nelson and their Okemah friends bummed rides, rode the city bus, or walked from South Mountain High School on 7th Street in Southern all the way down Broadway Road to Okemah on 40th Street. How many of you have heard of Okemah? All right, we got some devoted history people in the room, so I'm not surprised, but oftentimes people have no idea what I'm talking about. Most of us have heard of East Lake, the older African-American community on the north side of the river. But what happened to Okemah and where's its history? What was that third physiographic feature we talked about? Water, railroads, highways, with the side of airport expansion. In the early 1960s, the city condemned and demolished the Mitchell House. Plans for Interstate 10's Broadway curve went right through the Mitchell property. Nearby, Josephine Pete, who grew up in Okemah and attended 40th Street School, then Percy Julian, then South Mountain High, she stayed close to home. She began teaching at the new Palmdale Elementary and later Central High, and in the 1970s, the Phoenix Union High School District offered her a vice principal position. They said you could go to any school in the district. They gave her a list of schools, and she said, send me home. She later became the first Black and the first woman to be principal at South Mountain High School. Now, Principal Dr. Josie, who went to school with Gloria when they were the Rebels, was part of the movement to change the mascot from Rebel to Jaguar. All the while, Josie was watching her family's property on 40th Street be carved up. Broadway curve construction decimated Okemah beginning in 1971. It cut right through the heart of the community. The Durango curve just a few miles west did the same to 3 Hispanic historic barrios. Those communities had been around for nearly a century. Okemah became unrecognizable. What the freeway didn't take, the industry did, and the city didn't protect this area, this residential agricultural area, from industrial development. They left it zoned for mixed use. And its proximity to the freeway made it attractive for warehouses and distribution yards and the like. Today, there are a few Okemah structures still standing, most of them behind chain link fence. But if you go slow on 40th Street, you can see the canal where they used to baptize people. You'll also probably get honked at because traffic is a nightmare over there. After World War II, more African Americans moved to Phoenix, and a lot of them didn't want a homestead. They wanted suburban post-war homes. Many of them had GI Bill funding, but because Phoenix was redlined, they weren't allowed to buy property anywhere. So they could either wait for a home in East Lake to open up, or they could get creative. Travis Williams got creative. Along with his members of his family, Williams founded the Progressive Builders Association in 1945. These were the first Black-owned construction company in Arizona, and they built beautiful homes for Black aspirational families. They bought a sliver of property just south of Broadway Road from Kemper Marley, of all people, and began building developments like Princess Jean, Carlotta Place, and Sheridan Park. PBA was innovative, and not just because it was the first, because it challenged national trends in Black home ownership. In 1961, the Phoenix Urban League found that of the 31,000 new homes built north of the tracks, not a single one was sold to a Black home buyer. Conversely, almost 100% of Travis Williams' clientele was African American. This created a thriving, supportive community of Black leaders, politicians, and culture makers in South Phoenix. One of these days, I want you to consider just driving down Baseline Road. We sometimes call it the Baseline Highway. Baseline was set in 1868 as the starting point for the Bureau of Land Management's first land survey of the Phoenix area. They called the mountains and the base of the mountains, quote, unfit for cultivation. They were wrong. Beginning in the 1930s, 7 Japanese American families hand cultivated that very land along South Mountain foothills for what would become a vast empire of citrus, vegetables, and most notably, flowers. I love it. Y'all know what I'm talking about. The first to arrive was Kajiro Kishiyama, who rented 60 acres on 36th Street and Baseline. He launched a successful truck farm, built a house made of hay, and spent years digging rocks out of the earth, sometimes with his bare hands. Kishiyama recruited the Nakagawa family from California to join him, and 5 other families followed. But when Japan bombed Pearl Harbor in 1942, anyone living south of Grand Avenue of Japanese descent was sent to a concentration camp. When World War II ended, they returned to Baseline to find their homes vandalized, their farming equipment stolen, and no access to the land where they had previously lived. Japanese-born immigrants could not purchase this property, so undeterred, their family members helped them out. George Kishiyama, who as a youngster was termed the Tomato King, he wanted to help his dad out, but he was actually out of the country. So his sister Iko stepped in instead. She purchased the land her dad had originally settled at, and she held the deed for him. She went to jail for that. Meanwhile, Nick Nakagawa across the street bought his family's farm. Eventually, George and Nick took over operations from their fathers. In the 1950s, they began experimenting with growing flowers as well as citrus and vegetables. It didn't start with flowers. It became an immediate success. Soon, all 7 Japanese-American families strategically grew roses, chrysanthemums, daisies, stock, and sweet peas all along Baseline Road with produce grown in the back of the farm. The Japanese flower gardens, as they became known, became a sensation. Tourists from all over the country visited the acres of flowers at the base of a desert mountain. Nick Nakagawa built a 2-story observation pagoda to attract tourists. But here's the thing, they didn't just grow flowers, right? They fed the city. These are enormous truck farms that every week brought fresh produce to town, where grocers bought it and stocked their shelves with locally grown fruits and vegetables. But people remember the flowers, right? The smell, the cool air they generated at the base of the mountain, and they really think back on these flowers fondly. It is heartbreaking, really. Global markets put an end to the local floral industry. Development brought squatters and partiers and vandals to the fields. The land became too expensive to maintain, and the price to sell was right. The kids grew up, and no one had interest in the family business, except for one. Nick Nakagawa's daughter, Kathy, is a professor emeritus at Arizona State University, and when she retired in 2021, she took over her dad's shop at 36th and Baseline. The place already has a sterling reputation and an established customer base, but it really needed some TLC. So Kathy fixed it up. She brings in local micro growers from all over the state. She's put up a photo op. It's like an Instagram wall. She opened a lounge. Go see Kathy. Just drive down Baseline Road and go see Kathy, truly. She'll give you a tour. She'll show you where the pagoda used to be. It's right where her desk sits now. If that tower were still here, climbing it would give us an uninspired view of tract homes and apartments and traffic on Baseline Road. But Kathy, just like so many of our narrators that we've interviewed for this piece, knows the history, knows what's there, knows what used to be there. Let's take a pause. By studying South Phoenix, we've talked about all of these things listed here. We've talked about the founders of Phoenix. We've talked about multiracial founders, the powerful families like the Herds. We've discussed Black, Hispanic, and Asian innovators, and so much more. And listen, the speech could be a whole lot longer, right? That's why we have a book in process. So I'm sorry, where is South Phoenix? What did we start with here? Is it everything south of the tracks? Is it south of the river? Does Tempe count? Laveen? What's South Mountain Village? Come on, Summer, get us here, right? Well, my question was all along not really about geography, right? My question was, where is South Phoenix in historiography? Let me tell you how we got started with this research in the first place. In 2017, I was teaching a class called Arizona History. It was a small class, about 12 students, ranging in all ages, races, and backgrounds, but all from the neighborhoods surrounding the college. I was new to South Mountain Community College. I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do a class research project? I said, you all just pick the topic and I'll teach you how to research. And I was just so excited. Isn't that a great idea? Awesome, I thought. And they came back and they said, we want to learn about South Phoenix. And I said, wonderful, so do I. I'd love to learn about it. I'm going to teach you how to do local history and research methods, and I'm going to learn something a little bit myself. Historians, how do you start research? There are 2 kinds of sources you need. What are they? Primary and secondary. Exactly. This is where we started. I told them all about secondary sources. I said, we're going to go out, we're going to find websites and documentaries and books and articles. How do you think we did? Not so great. Okay. We started with the basics, right? We had a couple examples, right, from Luckingham and Whitaker, Melcher and Ross. We reached out to the librarians at both South and at ASU. I'm pretty sure I called Dr. Morin at one point, right? We did everything we could to start with secondary research. It just didn't look good. What we ended up with were stories, anecdotes about South Phoenix, hundreds of photos of the Japanese flower gardens, right? And a lot of dead ends. I have in my inbox still 7 apologetic emails from librarians. The problem was, and my students already knew this, right? The history's there. It's the narrative that's missing. So I told them, We cannot do this, right? This is a community college class. We have 12 weeks left. This is professional graduate level work that we are talking about. I said, let's pick a new topic. How about baseball in Arizona? I am not kidding. This really happened. And all students looked back at me with confusion and a little bit of frustration. And one of them said to me, Dr. C, if we don't do this, who will? So we launched the South Phoenix Oral History Project. Those 12 students developed the mission, a student-led initiative to capture and preserve the history of South Phoenix. And along with 350 students to this day and over 200 narrators, we have produced the following content that's populating on the screen, things like websites, documentaries, articles, etc. But what about that geography question? Where is South Phoenix? Was Gary Walters right? Is it south of the river, but also Magnolia Street, right? Well, for nearly a decade now, we keep running into this question time and time again. Where is South Phoenix? Typically, people are not looking at this historiographically speaking. They're talking about geography. Here are the 4 basic things we've learned, right? 1, it's not official. Nobody mails letters to South Phoenix, Arizona. It's a colloquialism. 2, it's complicated, right? A few years ago, I was doing a drive around, which is exactly what it sounds like. I load people into my car and we drive around, and I ask them questions. So we were driving around a historic neighborhood, and we talk about South Phoenix and people's memories. And in this one drive around, my friend Liz was driving, and I was in the back seat. In the passenger in front of me sat Irma Payan of Arizona Barrios fame, and next to me was her longtime friend, Ray Martinez. Irma, tell me if I get this right, grew up in Harmon Park on 7th and the south side of Pima, right? Pima Street? Pima, off 7th Avenue, and you were on the south side of the street. Ray, correct, she says. Ray grew up across the street, also on Pima, but on the north side of Pima in the Marcos Deniza housing projects, okay? Just paint the picture. Oh, Ray, is he here? Very good. All right, I said, would you consider this South Phoenix? And Ray says, absolutely. And Irma turns around in her seat and all but scolds me. I told you, it's complicated. Do you remember that? Oh my gosh, it was so funny. I've always, it's crystallized in my mind. The boundaries have shifted as more people and advancements come to the valley. South Phoenix has become further and further south. There's no real agreement, right? Scholars, residents, city officials, it's all up for debate. Not all groups agree on where South Phoenix is, and depending on who you're asking and what time period you're talking about, the boundaries may shift. So if we're going to study a place, right, how do we determine that place? Through archival research, oral histories, and a community survey is what we've done. I think we've got ourselves an idea. Inspired by Walter Nugent's 1992 famous article, Where is the American West?, we simply just started asking people. We added a question to our oral histories, and we launched a community survey. The survey was conducted online over the course of 2.5 years. Our goal was 100 responses. We got more than that. Students supported the collection phase, and survey respondents answered demographic information and then the following 6 questions. Where is South Phoenix? Just tell us. How have the boundaries changed? What are the characteristics of South Phoenix as you have defined it? Please describe South Phoenix's landmarks. If you're not in South Phoenix and you're traveling to get there, how do you know you've arrived? And what are your impressions of the geographical, historical, and demographic makeup of South Phoenix? Respondents also had a chance to draw for us. They could make a little map, right? Some of them were complex and incredibly detailed. Others were more general, just a circle on an iPhone, right? Both were helpful. And do you want to know what our conclusions were? All right, let's start with the southern boundary. Though Baseline and Dobbins roads are often cited, the overwhelming response was South Mountain Preserve, or the mountain, Greasy Mountain, Muhadagdawag, right? We get all of those responses. So we really get the sense that most people in the community believe the mountain to be their barrier. We think this underscores a deep-seated connection that residents hold with the land, but also the factor of a major geographical entity. The northern boundary. The Salt River, Rio Salado, is overwhelmingly mentioned as the defining northern edge, but some occasionally reference Washington or Van Buren streets, though these are far less frequent, which to me suggests that they're more of a historical reference of the movement of South Phoenix south. Eastern, 48th Street and Interstate 10 are most often mentioned, indicating kind of a moderate consensus. Also, it's pretty easy because there's a clear distinction between Tempe and Phoenix, so 48th Street provides a kind of a physical barrier, but also something on the map that helps us clear out this is Phoenix, this is Tempe. Guadalupe and Tempe are also mentioned as a point of reference, but not always a clear boundary. The western boundary is fuzzy, right? 19th Avenue, 27th Avenue, is it Levine, is it not Levine? So generally we see the western boundary is fairly ambiguous, but crystallizing as you get further and further north into the downtown area. So what now? I actually have some of these maps. Do any of you want to take a look at this map? Okay. Do you mind if I give this to you? You can pass it on. So what now? Well, the questions continue, and I still love asking friends, narrators, colleagues, all of you. I can't wait to hear what you all think. Where is South Phoenix? Where are the boundaries? Intellectually speaking, it is one of the most rewarding questions I ever get to ask. But beyond my own curiosity, right? The rewards of this research have given and keep giving. We now have a fairly well-defined area of study. We also have a fairly good kind of consensus, and we're able to produce scholarship that we can get published. And then finally, this is the one that's the most fun. We just put pen to paper. I am the amateur artist / cartographer, so be kind. This is just a beginning of a map that we are creating for distribution that gives us the boundaries, but also some of the landmarks of South Phoenix. So I'm going to be a teacher now. I'm going to give you a few moments, and I'm going to ask you 2 questions. While looking at this map, what do you notice? And number 2, what do you wonder? So take a few moments, notice and wonder, and I'll give you a chance to share back. Am I talking too quickly? Yeah. What do you notice and what do you wonder? I have been told I talk very quickly, so I apologize. All right, share with someone near you. What do you notice and what do you wonder? It's a little think, pair, share. Anybody want to share? What do you notice?
It's a 1970s map.
It's a great observation. It's a 1970s map. What do you mean by that?
Well, you have the freeway in there.
Yeah.
So I would go to next step.
Well, I mean, I think so. The Journal of Arizona History is publishing a new special edition called Arizona Since 1970. So I would agree that it is history.
We're all older than
Yeah.
would not say.
Yes, but what you also should know is that you are the keepers of history, though. You know content we probably need to know. That's good.
The question I would have for you is,
Yeah. Yes, we had a question he asked in the survey, did we ask people how long they'd been in South Phoenix? So our question was like a sliding scale. They could select how many years up to, I think, 100 that they or their family consider themselves local to South Phoenix. And when we identify narrators, we prefer that they be someone who've lived or worked in South Phoenix for 20 years or more. Yeah. Any other notice and wonder? Thank you. Notice and wonders? Yes. Yeah. Great, thank you. Anybody else? I'm happy to talk about this more at the end of today's talk if you like. So in 2024, the South Phoenix Oral History Project launched a driving tour of what we call historic South Phoenix. Many sites reference today's talk, and the tour showcases a South Phoenix defined by many conflicting ideologies. This place is both rural and urban. It is white and privileged, but also multicultural and poor. It was founded by Mexican-American pioneers whose names are practically lost to history. And in the case of the Sotelo Herd Cemetery, actually are lost to history, right? It was cultivated by Black innovators and now is being radically changed by outside investors. It should come as no surprise that many on the bus disembarked wondering, well, wait, where is South Phoenix? Where did it begin? Where did it end? And who do I trust with this answer? Every so often, someone asks me, are you still researching South Phoenix? Or with less sophistication, when will this project be done? And I'm trying to find a way to say gracefully, you will have to pry this from my cold, dead hands. Here's what I do know. If we had stopped with 100 interviews, a respectable number, we would have never met Josie Pete, which means we would not have conducted any interviews about Okima. We wouldn't have interviewed Mark Lamb, and we wouldn't have known about Josefina Pogue or the Sotelo Herd Cemetery. And just when I think I've got the hang of it, someone challenges me. Just this morning, I met with somebody about the Mystery Castle and its future on the site of South Mountain Preserve. There's more to do. There are communities throughout every region, including Tempe and Phoenix, whose stories are undertold, and we can help right this wrong. That's the job. Alex Haley said in 1973 that it was the wrinkled, graying ancestors, friends of his grandmother, who hold all the history. In recliners and at the kitchen table, grandparents, tias, and the neighbors of my students, those first 12 and the 350 cents, hold the key to solving what Haley called history written by the winners, messed up from the very beginning. I know every one of these stories I told you today. May Hurd, Nelson Mitchell, Josefina Pogue, Kathy Nakagawa. I know these stories in the way that I've shared them with you today because my students researched them, primarily through interviews with people they may already know, might stand behind in line at Starbucks or honk at on 40th Street. This is what makes oral history and local history so important. You see in real time the significance of your research. These are students, community college students from the most disenfranchised neighborhoods of the city by design from the moment the city was founded, who are doing professional level research. And they're doing it well, and they're making it matter. What an incredible teaching tool we have at our disposal. Think for a moment about the kind of confidence this might inspire in a student. Think about the value they might see in their own potential as a result of just interviewing their grandpa or their neighbor. It's good stuff. You can't plagiarize an interview yet. AI can't fill a historical narrative with major gaps in it. There's nothing for it to cull. If you were to Google South Phoenix, all it's going to give you is maybe the Wikipedia page and some crime statistics. If we don't do this, who will? And like I said, if you want to know anything about Phoenix history, you've got to come south. Thank you. Now, before I begin singing my share for you, on the back table there are 2 bookmarks. I imagine there are some readers in the room. Collect all 2. We've got a 3rd one coming out in January. And I brought a couple of these, but they're more available online. These are the driving tour booklets if you want to grab one and drive around. Yeah.
We'll get to the questions in a minute, just because I host these things, I'll ask the first question.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
All right, one of the things that came to mind, and you already alluded to that, the river was the major barrier early on. And I'm wondering if those who came from the north down into that area settled north of the river and at some distance from the floodplain, while those, and a lot of them were from Mexico that came up from the south, just naturally settled on the south side because the river was a major barrier. If it was running at full force, there was really no way to get across it until Charles Hayden constructed the ferry. Is that
3 days to get from South Phoenix to Phoenix because you had to go through Tempe until the Center Street Bridge. So it took 3 days. Yeah. I think the question is about de facto or de jure segregation in a way, right? Like Mexican American and Black people weren't allowed to buy anywhere else. So sure, they naturally found their way to their community because that's where the rest of their loved ones or friends were living, but they also didn't have the opportunity to move elsewhere.
And in Phoenix, obviously, when it was first settled and incorporated, was a very small area. When did what is now South Phoenix, the area south of the river, and I'm sure that was probably the reason for annexation. When was that area annexed by Phoenix?
The 1960s, the city began looking into annexing south of the river, and many people living in South Phoenix, primarily white farmers or ranchers, business owners, They tried to formalize a South Phoenix instead of Phoenix, and they resisted it. So an actual series of annexations began taking place late 1960s, about 69, 70, and 71.
That's very interesting. That's quite, that's quite late.
Yeah, and then throughout the 70s, most people just called it the county, even though it was annexed.
So the term South Phoenix didn't even evolve until 60s, 70s, 80s?
I mean, the first time I saw it in print is in 1930, but that's north of the river, south of the tracks.
Well, and again, in newspaper accounts, anything south of the river was just referred to as the south side, Tempe, Mesa, whatever communities.
Or they would have called it the Hurd community.
Yeah.
Because Hurd owned 7,000 acres, so he would have just kind of been the owner.
And just to show you how on top of things we are, you mentioned, amongst others, Kathy Nakagawa, and she was here some time ago talking about the flower gardens. So
The treasure. She's
yeah,
wonderful.
she was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
All right, I'm sure there are some questions. Let me go over here. Sure, always have to hike.
I have a question. This map,
You got to hold it up here.
it depends on who drew it, and then it depends on if you know the political people that ran for office there, like Rosemary Wilcox and Alfredo Gutierrez, Denny Ortega. They define South Phoenix differently because they're going from a political standpoint.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if any of them contributed to the definition.
Yeah.
Geographically, I used to go to dance at the Calderon Ballroom, which is on Buckeye,
Yeah.
you know, and we never went beyond baseline. It's, you know, so it was always an area that was considered, for the most part, either black or Hispanic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I thank
But
you.
it went as far east as the school districts would allow it.
Do you remember what that was? Was it 48th Street?
Well, yeah, because it ended there at 40th Street,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and Okima Village was right on the line.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I went to Tempe High, and we had no blacks other than maybe 2 or 3,
Sure.
yeah, which was amazing to me. You know, we didn't notice it then. We notice it now.
I mean, this is the beauty of doing recent local history, is that there are folks everywhere who can weigh in, give us input, you know, challenge our notions. But yes, we interviewed Alfredo before he passed. He was actually one of our very first narrators. Just shows you how gracious he was. The Wilcoxes, we've interviewed both of them. And yeah, everyone weighs in and gives us input on kind of where we can define these places. But it does depend on the period you're discussing. If you're looking at the 1970s, it might look a little different than if you're looking at the 1930s or 40s.
You teach at South Mountain?
I do,
Yeah.
proudly.
Cardenas,
Oh, yes, Dr. Cardenas is a very good friend.
he was a personal friend.
He was our first president. We just actually, student work helped achieve a huge milestone. We had the entire athletic facility named in his honor, all based on student research. Yeah. He was the second Hispanic college president in the country. I mean, he's a remarkable man.
I saw some other hands up. Wait, whoa. No, you do, because this is being streamed live.
This is more of an observation than anything else. As a native of this town, I always felt that South Phoenix was left behind from the rest of the city, unfortunately. I had relatives that lived in South Phoenix in apartments. I know that in the 65 flood, a lot of this area was damaged down there. My mother volunteered for the Red Cross and was pulling people out of the river, or living in the river bottom. So I've always felt that that area has gotten short shrift. I think a lot of businesses were damaged by the light rail going in down there, and they have not recovered. Places that have been there for decades. They wanted more lanes of traffic in the city and whatnot, said no. So I hate to see that. I think that we should all be equal, and I hope that more prosperity comes that way. And maybe the light rail will do that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, in fact, if you take one thing away from today's lesson, do something for me. When you tell someone, oh, I attended a talk on South Phoenix, pay attention. The person might respond, oh, what did you learn about it down there, right? They might say something about down there when they talk about South Phoenix. We don't say down there when we're talking about South Phoenix. It's up on a mountain. It's up on the hill, right? And it's a kind of a flippant way to communicate a whole package of assumptions, right? So we try to reverse that language, and that, at least in the narrative, can help keep it from being left behind. Thank you.
When I moved to the Valley 41 years ago, my work colleague at the Tribune took me immediately to see the Mystery Castle at 7th Street. And I was just so fascinated because cast-off stuff this guy built.
Yes.
Then my in-laws came to visit. We took them to there. Of course, today it's all run down and vandals have destroyed it. And the Spears family are trying to do something. But you know anything about the Mystery Castle?
Yeah, I just had a meeting this morning. There really is a true coordinated attempt to come up with a future for the Mystery Castle so it doesn't get demolished. But it takes money, right? So who's going to finance it and who's going to manage it? But I love to see that the city is investing time and resources in solving that problem, because this is a historic landmark. This would never get left behind in Paradise Valley, right? So there is a concerted effort, which makes me very proud. And if South Mountain Community College can be a part of that, I would be very proud. Yeah, thank you.
And that's something that Phoenix might have to invest in, as they did in the the castle.
Oh, the Tovrea.
The Tovrea Castle. That was deteriorating too, had a lot of problems, and finally Phoenix came in and purchased the property. Right now, developers are really wanting to go after it, but and some neighbors don't like it. I think it's because of the vandalism. But it is such a unique place and for someone like me, it's not only buildings. Man constructs buildings for human use. So it's interesting architecturally, but it's also of much greater importance because of how it came to be. And I think that's the reason that Phoenix ought to get involved. And the money to acquire it and to restore it in light of what a big city's budget is relatively small.
Very
There just
good
needs
point.
to be the commitment.
Very.
Just 1 minute, ma'am.
Where is the Mystery Castle? You said
On 7th Street, if you drive until there's like a roundabout, it's almost a dead end. You would just go east at that roundabout, and then you hit like a chain link fence. It's closed. You can't actually go experience it anymore, but you can see it from a distance.
Yeah, I think you can even see it from baseline.
You can,
Yeah.
but
You just have nowhere to look.
right.
Oh, heavens. Yes, you do, because we are streaming this, and people are,
Hello out
1 million
there.
people are watching this right now, and they won't be able to hear you.
All right, so my family came here in the 1860s. They got into mercantile. The river is not as wide back then as it is now. The sand and rock companies came in the 40s and 50s and mined that sand and rock and made it wide and those big pits and everything. That river ran freely year-round. The dams weren't up there at Roosevelt and Canyon and Saguaro. The water came down, and it ran freely. The only way to cross the river, if you were white, if you're of a color, you had to find your own way, but you could go over here to Hayden's Ferry, and they had a rope and a thing that would take your wagon across. The other thing is South Mountain has a lot of gold, silver, and minerals in it. There's still mines up there. The claims are extinct. There's no claims, but the mines are there. There was a lot of gold and stuff that came out of that mountain and had to be taken downtown to be sold. Also, there's a lot of racism in this town. Anybody of color had to live south of the tracks. The American Legion Post 41, Travis Williams over there on Broadway, a lot of Legion posts wouldn't take people of color. They had to start their own post. and everything. So it became its own community, its own economic structure and everything. It was a really tight-knit community. Everybody got along, the churches and everything.
Thank you very much. I'm actually I'd love to hear from any of you who want to maybe be interviewed by my students. So if you have something like your own personal stories that you want to share, come up here and I'll make sure to get your information from you before you leave today.
And the gentleman brought up actually kind of an interesting thought. In the early years, there weren't boundaries.
Right.
It was just land south of the river. And it wasn't until there was extensive settlement that we began to put political boundaries into that area, and I think that makes a difference. I want to thank you much for coming out. Did we enjoy this?
Well, thank you for being here, all of you.
Before you go, let's see, we've got, don't walk away. Why are you running over there?
Just right here.
Oh, okay, well, step back. I shower once a month, and it's only been 12 days, so I'm in pretty good shape. First, we thank you, and we try each time to, where do you live?
I live in Litchfield Park.
Oh, Litchfield Park, never
Talk
mind.
to me about that commute.
Tempe had a great pen and ink artist by the name of Richard Nearing, and he did incredible work. And that wasn't even his career. This was just an avocation. And to be honest, I never liked the man. Awful person. I can't draw a straight line, and he could sit there and have 3 conversations and come up with a magnificent piece of art. I broke his fingers once, but that didn't really make any difference. He was still able to do it with the other hand. So he passed away several years ago, and the family then donated all the work that he did. So we're always pleased to present to the speaker some work of art by Richard Nearing. And obviously, well, he didn't do anything directly related to South Phoenix, but the closest we could come is Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Church. And this is signed, and it's 88 of 120.
Wow, thank you. That's beautiful.
All right, now a song.
If I could turn back time.
Hey! The next time it's going to be...
I am a competitive karaokeer.
All right, I have a sign-up sheet up here. I'll actually leave it on the table, so if you want me to contact you, phone or email, and my students are always looking for people to interview. It takes about an hour. We'd love to have you.
And Summer will be here after we wrap up. All right, a couple of things. The museum is really doing so many activities that it never seems to stop. We had been promoting, and it was up on the screen previously, the Legend Celebration, if you're aware of that, is this Saturday night. And I was going to really urge anyone that wanted to come, because it'll be a special event, to get a ticket, but it's sold out. So you waited too long. Coming up on November 22nd, the Hayden House Drop-In Self-Guided Tour. Tempe has been opening up various properties that they own for people to experience, and that happens on a rotating basis. Also, if you're into the skateboarding exhibit, which has had a phenomenal attendance and response, there will be a film screening of that. Well, it's called High Rollers, the golden age of Arizona skateboarding. Didn't know there was a golden age. Some people here could have been skateboarding in the 60s. Anybody skateboard? A few. And you survived. You're still alive. So that's coming up on the 21st, Friday, the 21st of November. And then the AAC Book Club will be discussing their book by Zoom on Tuesday, November 25th. I think we may have a flyer for that. So there's a lot going on. As I mentioned before, we will be taking December off, but coming back in full force in January. Rob Moore will be our first presenter, and Rob has been a very active fellow in the area of preservation. He is president of the Tempe Historic Preservation Foundation and the leading advocate for preserving Donnell Plaza. Donnell Plaza has kind of languished for many years, and it came very close, I think, within a vote or two of becoming Mesa's City Hall back in 69 or 70. And then in February, Black Family Genealogy and History Society will be making a presentation, and we have a full schedule all the way through May. We've now extended our lunch talks to include September and May. So with that, I want to wish all of you a very happy Thanksgiving. I hope your holidays go very well, and we will see you again in January. I also want to recognize Brianna King sitting quietly in the corner there with a gentle wave. She was hired for an entirely different reason, but when Dan Miller retired, she kind of took over much of his work, and that means operating these cameras and getting this streamed out. As we mentioned before, we stream live on Facebook, but that only lasts for 30 days. And so we move these presentations over to YouTube, which you can access through our website or on Facebook. But that way we have a long-standing record of all the presentations like today, which was really terrific. And some of them have had over 1,000 views. So you get to see it live. A lot of other people watch the stream of it. So I guess all I have to say is class dismissed.